We're dividing polynomials, this time by a trinomial. So trinomial means that there are going to be 3 terms inside it. On one side of the note page I gave you is the step-by-step instructions. And something that you may want out for doing this process is some markers or highlighters to draw in the background of your boxes, because we're going to be drawing some diagonals, and that will help with color. So we are going to be drawing in boxes. This time, because we're dividing by a trinomial, we're going to need 3 rows. Each time is a trinomial. If it's a binomial, you need 2 rows. Or if it's a quadrilateral, you need 3. That means if the x squared is the highest. If an x is the highest in linear, you just need 2 rows. If an x cubed is the highest, how many rows do you think you might need? So you'll need 4. Because x squared highest, you need 3. X highest, you need 2. And so it keeps going up. We're not going to do anything higher than a trinomial. But just so you know, this can go into the higher ones for those that go up to higher maths. This is a lot easier than the process they typically teach at college. So this may be something that you save, because this is something that you'll be doing in college if you take college algebra. So this first one, we have 4x cubed minus 2x squared plus 10x minus 9. That whole quantity is divided by the quantity of x squared minus 1. And this should be already in your notes of what the problem is. But what is going to go in this top right-hand corner, or top left-hand corner of the box? What do you think is going to go there? In the left-hand corner, this box. So it's not going to be any different than yesterday on that. What do you think is going to go before the box?
X squared minus.
And one big thing is we have to go down by 1. And so what term are we missing between these two guys? The x. So just like y'all saw show up sometimes yesterday, you're going to have that 0x show up. But this time it's going to actually take over a row. And then the last one is that negative 1. So just like yesterday, we are going to be looking at the coefficient to help us create the row. So what is 4 times 0?
0.
And our x is going to go down by 1 in the exponent. What is 4 times negative 1? And this time it's going to be x, because we went down from 3 to 1 on our exponent. Now let's get those highlighters out. You're going to highlight the diagonal that starts with the x squared. And I'm going to highlight my x squared up here as well in that same color. Then we're going to highlight the diagonal that starts with a negative 4. X. Then highlight the diagonal. And I know it doesn't finish off in this box, but that would be the other spot, but we don't need it. Has everybody got those 3 diagonals highlighted? What can factor out of that first column that we filled into the box? The 4x cubed, 0x squared. 0x squared means that doesn't exist. So it's not something we have to worry about when we're factoring, because that doesn't exist when it's a 0. So we're only looking at the first and the last column. So what can you factor out of 4x cubed and negative 4x? An x and what else? And it's going to be a positive 4 because the closest 4 is positive. Or closest number is positive. Now, let's look at the orange diagonal. The orange diagonal is going to create a negative 2x squared. We have 0x squared, so what would need to complete it? A negative 2x squared. So what is the middle row going to be in this time again? It's going to be 0. This time x. Then that last spot, we're going to take that negative 2, and we're going to multiply it times that negative 1 down here. And that gives us a positive 2. And if we went down by 1 on our x's, we would be down to our constant. Now, what can factor out of those 3 spots? A 2, positive or negative? So we've had our x, we've had our constant. What follows that? When we did it yesterday? The remainders. The remainder column, this will behave different. This will only be filled in by the diagonals. So you're just looking to see what is left over. So if I had negative 4x plus 0x, and I need to create a positive 10x, what do I need? 14. That's when we can create that 10. So that gives me that 14x. Then for my constant row, I have 2. I have something I want to add into that, and I want to create a negative 9. What would I need to add? Negative 11. So therefore my answer is 4x minus 2, remainder of 14x minus 11. So we're going to be looking at that one to the right of the last one we did, if I remember right. Is that the right one? Yes. Okay. So go ahead and draw in your grid just like this. Okay, so we get the 2x to the 4th, and it goes in that top left-hand corner. We fill in our column. We didn't have anything missing, so I didn't have to have a 0 row. That means every row is going to be used for something. So the next number that I have is going to be 2 times what? 2 times 2. And what would my x be to what power? Oh, so I wrote 2, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 times 2 is definitely 4. Don't write and talk at the same time, because I write what I'm talking. And so to get the next row, we're going to do that 2 times the 3, giving us 6x to the what power?
2.
So if I look at that column, what can factor out of all 3 spots?
2.
A 2, an x squared. Now, if I was to follow the pattern that we created, so it goes x squared, then an x, then a number, then your remainder. So that remainder column, that's how you figure out your rows. So if you don't know what your rows are and you want to figure it out first, do that first column. It can help you figure out your rows. Or your columns, excuse me. And so in this one, we end up with 4 columns that we're using. Now to get the next row over, I'm going to use my green diagonal, which is going to get me that 0x cubed. That's the one that wasn't written, but it is understood to be a 0 if it's not written. So if I want to create a 0x cubed, I have a positive 4x cubed. What do I need to create a 0? Negative 4x cubed. You need to create a 0 by doing the opposite. So that's going to be negative 4x cubed. Now I'm going to create my column. So I'm going to take that negative 4 I got here and multiply it to the negative 2. Or to the positive 2, creating a negative 8. What will my x be to what power? And then I'm going to take that negative 4 and multiply it to the positive 3. Giving me a negative 12x. Out of that column, what do they all share? Negative 4 and x. And it's negative because the top one is negative. Now, let's go to the next column. Which diagonal is going to help me get started? The orange one. And that's going to be my x squared, which is up here at negative 11 x squared. So if I have a 6 plus a negative 8 plus something is going to give me a negative 11. Negative 9 x squared. As I go down, negative 9 times positive 2 is going to be negative 18 x. As I reduce my exponent by 1, negative 9 times 3 is going to give me a negative 27. And if I reduce my exponent by 1, I am now left with no x's. What can factor out of that column? Negative 9. And can any x's factor out? Now we're in our remainder column. Remember, our remainder column behaves different. We're not worried about the rules on the side. We are just looking at the diagonals, completing our diagonals. It's what's left over. So the remainder is what's left over of the x's. If I have negative 12 plus a negative 18, and I'm trying to get to a negative 30, what do I need? 0. What about negative 27 plus what is going to equal negative 27? So my remainder is 0. What does that mean? You don't have a remainder. That means it divides evenly. That means these two would multiply together to create the original problem. So our two sides, if I was to multiply them together, this is the grid that I would create. There will be no remainder. So my answer is just this, 2x squared minus 4x minus 9. It is possible to have 0 remainder. The reason for the long division, the division and factoring like this, is in order to create ones and figure out how to factor with the ones that are larger factoring problems. Now, let's look at the word problem. I want you to take and figure out how you're going to do your boxes. The purple cards, or dark blue, or whatever color you want to call this, are the cards that are actually going to help you create this. And so I want you to go through and see if you can figure out using the purple cards. And this is, I'm going to give you a hint, you're going to use the same grid as you would have used yesterday, because it is a binomial that we're dividing by. So you're going to use this grid side. Oh, I had it right the first time. When you're doing it. You will see that I have not got these all cut out. If you'll cut out the cards and see if it can help you get started. Hopefully at this point you've gotten to this step. Now, remember that whatever we put for the answers up here at the top, this information is going to be multiplied times 2x to create that first row. So what would that number be up here? 4x squared. We're doing it a different way because that is a 2 here. So to create an 8 here, I would have to take and multiply 4 times 2 to get an 8, x squared times x to get x cubed. So what would the bottom number be? 4x squared. You take this top. So this is a little bit different than what we've been doing, but not, it's just taking a different piece of it. So see if that can help you get going.